Hey, hi, social media family. Being as you are of any subscribers, and likewise, I greet you all, being otherwise of any visitors to that being of my own social media channel and or chat room or comment section. How are you all doing? Hmm? Well, hopefully everyone is doing at least okay, if not better yet to be said, to be feeling all right, or if not best of all to be said, to be feeling blessed and stressed, more blessed and stressed, or too blessed to possibly become or be stressed. You and yours, your family and friends, and hopefully me and mine likewise as well, are all the same. And regardless of whatsoever or whatever anybody could possibly be going through as the present given moment in time. So I say to one and all to be possibly considered, you know, persons among yourselves, you know, in that same line of thought and or sense of the word, or for that of some such a given moment in time. You know, hold that thought. I'm going to, because I don't want to be interrupted by some of such other frequency transmissions of communications, especially, well, mainly or mostly, well, any other, with the exception of a proverbial neighbor from hell or a public problem neighbor. Then what I was about to say, as I think of it with that in my mind's intention to try to backtrack here with reason on purpose to being, in order so I can go on with the following to continue for where and when that my person at last left off, so I can finish up as incomplete a form free of pride line thought and then sense of word. Yes, especially when it comes to that being of a religious nature. And as I myself don't listen to any and every person that claims to be a believer in God or Christian. I mean, the devil and his demons could possibly believe in God. Well, quite naturally do, you know what I mean? So, as a figure of speech, sake argument, the fact of the matter, they would believe in God. Well, I myself, as well as anybody else, would believe that, being a believer compared to the unbelievers and unbelievers who have yet to get to know God. But then, nevertheless, just being there because somebody claims to have become or be a believer in God, and that is including the devil and the demon, that don't make them Christians. And everybody talking about heaven ain't going. And more than quite a few of them are, you know, going to become subject to experiencing that just another dime a dozen version of the Jonestown Kool-Aid mixed punch. Okay. Anyway, though, moving right along, and as I think of it with that in my mind's intentions to backtrack here, as I was saying, I'm stating for the record, and being of my mind's intentions so that I can or could possibly continue for win-win that my person at last left off, so I can finish up as a complete a form free the pride line thought in the sense of the word. And whereas I myself personally owe you all an apology for that being a one of a couple few of my last social media broadcasts or videos, or mainly or mostly the last one, particularly and especially for that of the same of the same question of the former previous prime mentioned. Then because I myself was mouthing off like quite a, well, that could possibly probably be an understatement. you know, or like a half of it. But I was bouncing off your eardrums quite a bit, or more than a few expletives of profanity or cuss words as I was cussing and swearing like a drunken sailor, as I myself was getting some sort of major resentment over that of my present life crisis of a dilemma, as I had informed you all before, being on my social media family as subscribers and any visitors, how now I have to move from my present place of residence, after having received walking papers or paperwork documents of eviction notice, being in which one of the proverbial neighbors from down hell should have gotten much rather instead. And regardless of how one of the management personnel representatives of these real estate premises or properties of a facility, be it public or private, had informed or told my person that supposedly this one particular proverbial neighbor from down hell had moved out of one's unit of a place rather than apartment, but then yet I am still hearing the same extreme and excessive noises of different sorts or types upon a daily and nightly basis, whereas either one has gone back to one's old apartment or somebody has replaced him being one of his accomplices in crime, unless a new tenant is supposed to have moved into the neighbor from down hell's own apartment is taken up, as in continuing from where he himself at last left off. Because as I have said before, so I say again, likewise stay for record, I'm hearing the same ridiculous, extreme excessive noises, and whereas I'm having the mind's intentions to not put on my gorilla suit and go to war, because that of my person I'm already caught between a rock and a hard place, and whereas my next place of residence don't need to become or be that of for an atmosphere of premises property of JAIL, or that either CRAZY-HOUSE for that matter. And as they themselves had already done enough to cause me mental anguish and or physical trauma, then to fall into that trap to have it seem even more like after the proverbial, as this one proverbial neighbor from hell with one of his accomplices in crime had flipped the script on me by having me get that of the walking papers, paperwork documents of eviction notice that oneself should have received, which that would be like out of the frying pan and into the fire, as they say, And whereas I'm still having to try to find for myself an available apartment vacancy before the deadline when I'm to be booted out of, as in kicked to the curb from this present place of residence of a building address location, And as well, I have to find another available apartment vacancy, not only before the deadline when that's supposed to happen, but before I were to possibly, risk a greater chance of becoming homeless, And so that kind of got to me more than quite a bit. I was cussing and swearing like a drunken sailor. I was going at it with the Mr. Toilet Mouth routine, And as that is one of my most dreaded phobias, Then disregard any interruptions you can hear in the background for this present social media broadcast video. No, I'm not making reference to any electronic frequency communications or broadcasts. Well, I would be, if it's a religious one, the same as proverbial neighbor from down here, because I don't listen to any and every religious broadcast. Certain broadcast, I'm care less for compared to other ones. I would try to get a benefit without what you may be hearing in the background now. You know, hopefully one is not otherwise one of those false brethren, false prophets, or antichrist. You know, at least I could do give one the benefit without get a feel for what one's saying before I would either decide to continue listening or you know change the channel to a different station. You know, be it for television or radio, etc. Anyway, though, so I was cussing and swearing like a drunken sailor last you all, so I said get back to some such other. I mean, I was mouthing off like so. And to think that this one neighbor from down hell is still going at it, making one's same daily and nightly noises of different sorts of types of extreme excessive nature, you know. And that same line, I thought essentially the word whoever that being a particular proverbial neighbor from hell is supposed to be now, whereas I'm hearing the same kind of nonsense, you know. And if it persists, even before I had got up and running to do this present social media broadcast video, if it persists, I will eventually, obviously, evidently have to place an emergency 911 call, telephone call for the police, though that would make me even later as well. That although that could possibly make me even later, and as well possibly make me have a greater risk of a chance of missing religious church service and sabbatical Sunday school class altogether, you know. That much more. But anyway, though, I felt I owe you all this apology. And so that's why I have gotten things up and running as of now, you know, as you can all judge or witness by the name title for the social media broadcast, as well as for the footnotes at the side, you know. And because I really went at it. I mean, I was cussing and swearing like nobody's business, you know. SOB this and SOB that, MF this, MF that, blah, 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 blah. Yada, yada, woo, woo, woo. Zing, zang, ping, 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 ricochet, rabbit, you know. I mean, it was going on, you know. You know, and the rest is history. The rest is whatever. Yeah, you know, I'm hearing a whole bunch of. I mean, a lot of these here. And I was saying, disregard, ignore what you could possibly hear in the background. That's one. I'm trying to get one to benefit that so far as a religious broadcaster or you know one of these here televangelists, but for the medium of the radio, has more than quite freedom to be on the radio as well as on television. You know. Yeah, man, to go back to what I was saying, everybody talk about heaven ain't going. You know. Whereas I don't need to be programmed or brainwashed by another Jim Jones wannabe, you know. You know what I'm saying? Or I don't need to become subject to experiencing another Jim Jones wannabe attempting to brainwash me, attempting to make me brain dead or brainless, or one of one's moo moo cow or bye bye sheep cattle, or you know, gullible ones, you know, going for the bait, hook, line, and sinker. You know what I'm saying? God forbid, you know, to drink one of the many dime a dozen versions of the Jonestown Kool-Aid mixed punch. But anyway, though, I just felt, getting back to some such others, though, that I had to do this here present social media broadcast video, as I owe you all an apology. And before I would step out of my place of residence apartment, soon to become my old apartment, hopefully I would find a new place of residence apartment, you know, before the deadline, before I would become homeless, you know. And as I said before, so I say again, and likewise state for the record, and that is one of my, not just one of my much worse, but one of my worstest dreaded phobias, to put it like that, not a fear. You know, there's supposed to be some kind of two different explanations for the word fear, or the acronym letters that would spell out the word fear. You know, face everything and run, or face everything and rumble. You know, so I paraphrase my word exactly. And hopefully I'll be ready to put on my gorilla suit and do the latter much rather than the former. You know, yeah. Anyway, though, yes, I owe you all an apology, and regardless of whether or not I delete one a couple few of my last videos, or particularly, especially that last video, that all depends. You know, of a social media broadcast. You know, then I could keep it on record all the same, keep it within my files, just to remind me how low I can go, how much I could possibly give somebody else the keys to my mind if I don't be careful. And then from there, have the doors wide open for somebody to dump all of their negativity into my head, like I'm a big old trash disposal container, a big old garbage can, where they put all kind of filth up here, you know, of their negative, contradictory influences of demonic activity, you know. And sometimes where we could become or be our own worst or worstest enemies if we permit ourselves to stoop to the level of ignorance, insanity, and impoliteness, or stupidity, sickness, and a rudeness of another or of others, you know. And this one proverbial neighbor from damn hell among the dime, a dozen produce problem neighbors is really that much. Zing, 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 gone to another planet, you know, out of one's tree, you know, off one's rocker. However said, you know, I mean, a real wild coyote. Zing, zing, zing. Every which way but loose. You know, totally different atmosphere. One small step for one giant step for an idiot and or sicko, or for a meth head or crackhead or whatever he could possibly be smoking, you know, or have smoked, could smoke again, you know. I mean, but then ignorance, insanity, you know, impoliteness, stupidity, sickness, and a rudeness can be a drug in its own right, regardless of whether or not a person is becomes addicted to experiencing a much more familiar addiction otherwise, you know, of the bottle, or shit, the pipe, you know. God forbid, take it all to the cross. You know. Yes, so I owe you all this apology, you know, for what it's worth. And while I was going about typing up the footnotes, I was hearing the same old ignorance, insanity, and impoliteness, the stupidity, sickness, and a rudeness coming from this one proverbial neighbor from damn hell, as the devil and his demons are not just busy, but extremely busy, that much more in this day and age, for these last and evil days, for these end times, before the end of the world and the second coming of Christ, or for whichever comes first, or maybe both will come at the same time. You know, who can say? Well, you know what I mean to say, as a figure speech, but then, if anything, you know, I can't remember this. It was supposed to be the end of the world couldn't come first because Christ had to come first for the end of the world to fulfill the biblical prophecy. Then I think you all get the general idea of what I'm trying to say. But then it could be like the end of the world with all these signs of the times fulfilling biblical prophecy, whereas the end of the world is just around the corner. And somewhere during the course of the signs of the times, Christ is supposed to come back and claim his bride, being us believers in God, as in Christians, aka Protestants, not counting the false brethren, false prophet or antichrist of modern day religious Pharisees and Sadducees, of some sorts or such types of closet devil worshippers, who make up the majority of most churchgoers, whatsoever, whatever religious denomination, especially when it comes to the prosperity preachers or televangelists, who are some as such, whereas not just the deeper, darker, and hotter, but the deepest, darkest, and hottest areas of the lake of fire, damn hell, will be reserved just for them, so that they could burn for all eternity there. Fire, brimstone, and sulfuric acid, be tortured and terrorized by the devil and his demons forever, as well as the likes of gay pedophile Catholic priests and gay pedophile Catholic priests wannabes, or rapists and pedophiles, period. Any of the likes of Catholic priests, gay pedophile Catholic priests, or gay pedophile Catholic priest wannabes, or not. Anyway, though, getting back to some of such other. So I was cussing and swearing like a drunken sailor, you all. Pretty much so, practically, if not possibly, sounding or seeming like an escapee from a mental hospital or insane asylum with the way I was cussing and swearing, or at least like a serious alcoholic drunk for the atmosphere, premises, properties of a lounge or tavern, or what would be called a pub, as our kissing cousins across the waters of the great Atlantic, being of the Brits, as in British or English would call it, for an atmosphere as that being, or likewise for an atmosphere for primitive properties of a local vicinity area neighborhood community liquor store at a given address location. Yes, I have become subject to experiencing myself sounding and or seeming like a dry drunk, or worse yet, like a dry drug addict, dry alcoholic, dry drug addict, like a dry drunk, dry hype, or whatever I've said. Do please excuse, pardon, or forgive me if I'm butchering the English language, American dialect, as the president one time. But I was sounding off. I was sounding off like boom, boom, boom. Talk about a jet fighter, reaching match 1, match 2, match 3, breaking the sound barrier. Yeah, so imagine if I was up under the influence. Then you heard about that of the Russian supersonic missile. Yeah, hopefully the U.S. military got just as many, at least 135 half, or mostly that being which could possibly compare to the Russians' military arsenal. Just in case the USA and the USSR may throw down much sooner than we think, so far as World War III is concerned. And that all depends on whether or not, Sleepy Joe, Slow Joe, our president-elect, if he could possibly sleep that one. That all depends on whether or not Sleepy Joe sleep that one and decides to, from there, give the breakaway, supposed so-called Democratic Republic of Democracy, the Ukraine that the Russians think is still a part of a Soviet empire. That all depends on whether or not President Sleepy Joe of the USA were to declare the Ukraine as a no-fly zone. And then whereas from there, the other president for the other superpower could order that its own military could order its own military jet fighters to fly over the Ukraine, and then from there, our own American or U.S. president-elect or president of the USA could order our own jet fighters or the military to retaliate against how, you know, the president of Russia, Soviet Union, or the USSR could order jet fighters to fly over Ukraine if the president elect or president USA grants the Ukraine a no fly zone status. And so much for that conversation. Disregard what you heard in the background so far is just another one of these neighbors from damn hell acting out or misbehaving and, and particularly especially or you know ain't no most, as I suspect it's just one particular neighbor from damn hell, idiot and or sicko, or more of a creep weirdo than an idiot or sicko, because one had managed to have me be receiving the walking papers, the paperwork documents of eviction notice that one self should have received. So one is not so much, stupid old dumb call or sick or psycho after all, compared to being more of a creep, if anything, a creepy weirdo, a creepy weirdo, making like from the midnight cowboy to the spook to sit by the door. Yeah. So I apologize to you all, my social media family. Yes, though I'm still having to deal with this one proverbial neighbor from hell for life, the one's kind among the dime a dozen public nuisance problem neighbors. You know, regardless of how real estate management personnel representatives said that very one has supposedly moved out of the building. Well, whoever is making the noises now are the same sort of type upon a daily, nightly basis, especially for the weekends as well as for the late evening hours. That much more, you know. For that same unit's atmosphere plays a resident apartment either has to be this neighbor having come back, or one of his accomplices in crime, or the new tenant that supposedly moved into his old apartment or place of residence is, taken up from where he himself had last left off. That's the only way to explain it. But yeah, I have to move. After he had managed to convince and deceive or fool the management of building and real estate representative personnel that I'm supposedly am the problem or the troublemaker. And that just burns me up. It pisses me off, as it would anybody being your average individual person who still possess half one's marbles, regardless of whatever race or walk of life, faction, society, lifestyle preference, or gender, or age, beliefs, etc. You know what I'm saying? I still have to move. I'm pissed. I'm pretty much still pissed. Well, hopefully not as much as I was during the last couple few social media broadcast videos, particularly, especially that last one. I'm still pretty pissed because I still have to move. And it's no, it's no picnic. It's no fun. After having searched for this here place of resident apartment, and then went to likewise all the trouble of moving in here, my personal effects belonging to possessions. Then after I had worked like a Hebrew Israelite slave cleaning up my place of resident apartment for this particular one, in preparation for an inspection or re-inspection of my unit or place of resident apartment, wanted to shortly after have received that walking papers, paperwork documents of eviction notice. And then now I'm having to go through the same thing all over again. Going back to scratch one, I have to prepare for an upcoming move before the deadline, before I will become homeless. I have to prepare for an upcoming move for hopefully whereas I will find another available apartment vacancy of a place of residence before the deadline, before I would be kicked out of this one, and before I were to possibly become or be of the rank and file of the derelict transients, as in to be translated to be defined as meaning of the homeless. Okay, been there, done that, don't want to do it again anytime too soon again. As I myself personally being that my person have never been homeless by choice, you know. And that's a scary thought, even for a believer in God, as I myself am to have to think about. So let alone how much more it would be if I was still an unbeliever, non-believer. You hear what I'm saying? Yeah, that's a scary thought, you know. And whereas homeless persons or derelict transients become subject to experiencing much more verbal assaults or verbal attacks, as well physical assaults or physical attacks, however said, more than your average individual person otherwise who has a place of residence to call one's home, you know, to call one's home sweet home, be it an actual house or a home or just an apartment that one pays monthly rent to a landlord for, you know, as well as one could possibly, if one is of another kind of person owning one's own home or house paying, you know, monthly mortgage, you know. So I'm right back where I started from, you know, having to save money for what little a lot of time I still have, you know. Yeah, to not only have money to move my personal effects, belongings, or possessions, but also so I can pay rent elsewhere, annual monthly rent elsewhere, the first monthly installment, you know. As I would hope that I would get another place of a double apartment vacancy before then, you know. Yeah. And before I would have to consider a rescue mission shelter. You hear what I'm saying? And all being in because this one neighbor. Now, I was about to say something else, but I can't remember. You know, all things work for good, God, regardless. All these pop up notifications. And sick of this here. You know, I don't listen to any everybody's mainly most of the religious pop up notifications in my comment section. I mean, for my alongside of my comment section. Sick of that. Yeah, I'm having to go through all the same crap, you know, preparing for an upcoming move. Ain't that a blip? So I got some resentment behind it most recently, you know. And was I still had to find a church home at that, you know, to encourage my faith in God, you know. I've been searching for a church home for years and still haven't found one. You see a false churches, false brethren, false prophet, and antichrist. Or as I was saying, the majority of most churchgoers being on whatever religious denomination, nothing more than being not just the worst, but the worst is a closet devil worshippers. You know, you hear what I'm saying? Yeah. Back in the saddle again for a rough ride of it, you know. You hear what I'm saying? To try to find me another place for resident apartment vacancy before the time runs out, you know. But then you know what they say, when you have lemons, make lemonade, you know. Just as long as I were to be able to keep the suicide and homicide monsters at bay, of those 800-pound gorillas or apes, then it's all good. If God can permit me to continue to do so, you know. And because I'm fighting for my life. I mean, to become or be homeless is not just quite like so, but very much so a life and death situation, like a life sentence, you know, in an atmosphere of a penitentiary or a prison system or a prison colony. That's how I look at it. Oh, here's another one of these pop-up notifications from religious broadcasts. You know, I mean, what a difference a day made, 24 little hours, as they say, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's a scary situation, you know? You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? To have to go through the same old, you know, whatchamacallit once again, you know, back to the drawing board, be put back at square one, you know. So I can imagine what those employees of NASA must have felt like, for that one movie flick film on Hollywood, California motion picture production, for that being the one called Hidden Figures. That is the story about three black sisters that had, you know, pioneered the space race to supposedly put American astronauts on the moon before the Russian cosmonauts. I'm back at square one, you all. You hear? Back at square one. And that sucks. God. I mean, this is a living damn hell I wouldn't wish on my worstest enemy. Yeah. For what I'm going through now. Well, didn't you have to be bothered with that at your last place of relocation? Yep. That's part of the reason why I moved. Yeah, I didn't really want to go through another court proceeding like the one before last. To try to buy even more time. I said, effort, man. Let me just get the ball rolling. This time I tried to make contact with attorneys or lawyers. I'm leaving voicemail messages in the voicemail box retrieval system for electronic device, and they're not picking up. I'm like, what up, though? What's up with this here? So I may just have to, go with the other plan, just move out regardless of whether or not I could possibly think about, getting attorneys or lawyers involved so far a legal counsel of defense. I mean, that's a shame. Damn if I do, I'm damn if I don't try to think to do the right thing. I mean, whereas the management, real estate management personnel representatives, they take their own sweet time about seeing about my complaints and steady grievances against the proverbial neighbor from damn hell. Where before then I would be like, could you please tone it down? If not, knock it off altogether. They take their own sweet time about saying what I want. But so far as he himself is concerned, he like rushing me, taking the bait, hook, line, and sinker. And then he flips the script on them, calls to the management office as I'm ranting and raving about his nonsense. Hey, could you turn it down? At least it not tune it out altogether. Then they could have possibly eavesdropped down my apartment door and said, oh no, man, this will never do. He has to go and make a reference to me. He has to go. And I'm getting the walking papers, paper by an eviction notice that the neighbor from hell should have got much better instead. Yeah. But then I owe you all an apology for last. I was on your cussing when I could say, then I'm gonna wrap this up by saying, if you haven't gotten Christ as your personal Lord and Savior, I would hope that you would think to do so now while the blood is still running warm in your vein, by recognizing and realize what he himself had done or did. I have said, be I butchered in the English language, American dialect, or not. For what he himself had gone through to fulfill biblical prophecy, become that perfect sacrifice, the only sacrifice for you as well as for me. So if any of us being of whatsoever race and whatever walks of life, fashion of society, lifestyle preferences, being of the old, young, like both two sexual genders, the male, the female, representing not only the human species, but then nevertheless the global community within this post 911 era of a new millennium apocalyptic day and age where the doomsday clock is now at a couple few minutes of midnight compared on that former period prior to then was a quarter midnight for the viability of prophetic time would have professed some such faith in him, and then we come and be blessed in one regard another, and more with one. First and foremost, with his salvation being of which is the only means by which any of us can or could possibly enter into the kingdom of heaven to be considered citizens thereof. And then second of all, with his deliverance. But first you have got to get his salvation, otherwise you have nothing coming so far as blessing is concerned. And if you make that transition for the great beyond without that blood sacrifice, that fire insurance of his blood sacrifice of our Lord and Savior Christ and Messiah delivered, then your final destination will be the lake of fire, damn hell, to be tortured and terrorized by the devil and the demons forever. Compared to we as believers and God will be across that great divide that separates heaven from hell in the company of like-minded believers in God and the presence of God and his angels otherwise. Hey, you all take care and be safe. Be blessed, not stressed. Peace and love, joy and happiness, and I'll get back with you all if and whenever. I can't promise when, but I mean, so.